Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. In this AMD Ryzen 9 9950X build guide, we're going to cover everything that you need to know to build a powerful Ryzen 9950X professional production PC for creator or other types of multi-threaded workloads. This guide is also going to work great for the Ryzen 9 9900X or previous generation Ryzen 7950X or 7900X. We'll cover the best graphics card for Ryzen 9 9950X, the best RAM for the Ryzen 9 9950X, the best motherboard for the Ryzen 9950X, and more. And we'll give you specific build templates for both a budget and premium Ryzen 9950X PC build. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like as it really helps out the channel, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. With that, let's jump into it. Let's start with the best GPU for the Ryzen 9 9950X. Now the first thing you want to do is review the applications that you intend to use and see what their recommended system requirements are for GPUs. Now, the vast majority of users will want to get a regular gaming GPU from the existing AMD Radeon, Nvidia GeForce, or possibly Intel Arc lineups. However, a small number of you may need features available on AMD Radeon Pro or Nvidia professional graphics cards, like error correction code memory, ECC for short, in scientific or engineering programs. These professional GPUs are not very good for gaming, but they excel in professional applications, especially those requiring significantly larger amounts of VRAM. However, they cost a lot more than gaming GPUs, which again will work just fine for the vast majority of you out there at a significantly lower cost. I'll leave a link to an Igor's Lab article showing relative performance of AMD and Nvidia professional GPUs in a variety of workloads in the video description if you want a deeper dive. Unlike gaming, getting the right CPU and GPU combo for a professional or creator PC, it's going to come down to how important the GPU is to your workloads. Now, if you also want this to be a hybrid gaming PC, consider spending a bit more on the GPU over what the system recommendations are for your software suite. Regardless of specs, I wouldn't really go below a Radeon RX 7800 XT 16GB GPU or RTX 4070 Super 12GB GPU. For 4K gaming, I'd recommend a minimum of a Radeon RX 7900 XT 20GB GPU or RTX 4070 Ti Super 16GB GPU. In our build, which is primarily a high-end video editing PC and also a gaming PC, we went with the ASUS TUF RTX 4090 OC, as the 4090 is particularly good with its dual encoders, though this is massive overkill for just video editing. But there's nothing wrong with overkill if it's in your budget. Next up is the best RAM for the Ryzen 9950X. Now, first off, we strongly recommend that unless you need more than 96GB of RAM, that you go with a 2-stick configuration. This is because while the memory controller on Ryzen 9000 series CPUs is a bit stronger than Ryzen 7000 when using a 2-stick configuration, it's still rated all the way down to the same 3600 speed when using a 4-stick configuration. Thus, while we haven't extensively tested RAM compatibility, just isn't possible without multiple CPUs to rule out silicon quality differences, we expect Ryzen 9000 to exhibit the same 4-stick RAM problems as Ryzen 7000, where deep manual RAM tuning in the BIOS and extensive stability testing is needed to ensure stable 4-stick operation at decent speeds. So I advise skipping all that craziness and getting up to 96GB in a 2-stick kit. For those of you who decide on going the 4-stick route, I've linked 2 videos in the description by memory overclocker Game Tech Reviews, where he is able to manually configure up to 192GB in a 4-stick kit using what seems to be a repeatable process. For everyone else, I recommend a 2-stick kit running at DDR5 6000 CL30, and I'll leave several links down in the video description. Remember, that speed is achieved using the XMP or EXPO one-click RAM overclocking profile in the BIOS in order to get the full rated speed. We cover how to do this in our PC setup guide, including our How to Build a PC playlist, linked down in the video description. DDR5 6000 CL30 works best because it allows the CPU memory controller to run at the same speed as the RAM, and all of that's configured automatically when activating XMP or AMD EXPO one-click overclocking profiles in the BIOS. Going over 6000 speed loses our golden ratio for no performance uplift, so just get 6000 speed. Now, all AM5 motherboards can use either XMP or EXPO, and we haven't seen any performance difference between the two. But if your kit comes with both profiles, I'd opt to use the EXPO ones in the BIOS. In terms of how much RAM you need, check your system requirements for your software suite. Now, 32GB is plenty for many creators and can be had for $100, like our Team Group T-Force Delta DDR5 6000 CL30 kit that we used in our build. 2x24GB kits, so 48GB total, are weirdly priced in the US, and they're actually more expensive than a 2x32GB kit, so 64 gigabytes total. So that would be my next step up, around $185. 2x48GB kits, so 96 gigabytes total, are still quite expensive for DDR5 6000 CL30, around $330. So if you need this much RAM, you can consider slower kits with looser timings, like the G.Skill Ripjaws X5 DDR5 5200 CL40 for $189. Next up is the best motherboard for Ryzen 9 9950X, and we go through many of them in our best motherboard for Ryzen 9000 video. So I'm just covering the highlights, and I will leave that video link down in the video description if you want a deeper dive or you want more options. We covered chipset differences in that video, but the short version is, depending on your storage needs, you either want a currently available B650 motherboard, possibly a B850 when they arrive in September, if they're well priced, or if you need additional M.2 or USB native connectivity on the motherboard, go with a currently available X670 or upcoming X870 motherboard. Note that the X870 chipset promises to have native USB 4 support, so if that's important for your storage environment, consider waiting for their release. And avoid the garbage A and B840 chipsets for the Ryzen 9950X. We will need to use the BIOS flashback feature on existing B650 and X670 boards to make them compatible with Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. It's easy to do, I did it in this build, and we do a step-by-step in our How to Build a PC video. For creators, the main motherboard features that you want to focus on, or whether you want 3 M.2 NVMe SSD slots natively on the motherboard, or if you want up to 5. How much rear panel USB connectivity you want, including how many USB Type-C ports that you need, whether you want Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to come with the board, you can add this in later, and whether the board comes with basic or upgraded audio. In terms of the audio, if you do not have an external digital to analog converter, or DAC for short, and you intend to plug in analog headphones into your PC, particularly for those sound and video editors who are working with high impedance headphones like the DT770 Pros that we use, you're going to want to get at least an ALC 1220 or ALC 4080 audio codec with support for those high impedance headphones and good quality speakers called studio monitors. You can, of course, always upgrade to an external DAC, like the Motu M2 for $199 or M4 for $270 in the future. When it comes to external audio equipment, of course, I'm not necessarily an expert, so feel free to do some additional research. All right, let's jump into recommendations. Now, personally, I'd skip all the normal gaming, budget, and mid-range picks because in my opinion, they just lack the overall creator and production features that you want when you buy a CPU like the 9950X. So starting at the currently $180 MSI B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi with upgraded ALC 4080 audio, 3 full bandwidth PCIe Gen 4 M.2 NVMe SSD slots, and a good amount of high-speed rear USB connections, though it only has one Type-C port. If you want a white-silver combo instead, the MSI B650 Edge Wi-Fi is basically the same board with white styling and RGB, and it upgrades the top NVMe SSD slot to PCIe Gen 5 speed. Moving up in price and features, I'd skip most of the other $200 to $250 B550 boards and just jump up to about $270, where you find X670E motherboards with a baseline of 4 M.2 NVMe SSD slots, as well as upgraded audio and extremely good rear USB connectivity. The ASRock X670E Steel Legend has fallen to around $239, which is pretty good for its feature set. We went with the Asus Prime X670E Pro, which is a great motherboard offering 4 M.2 NVMe slots, upgraded ALC 1220 audio, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and an impressive amount of USB rear panel connectivity, including 3 Type-C ports. You could also go with the Asus TUF Gaming X670E Plus, which is basically the same motherboard, but just with one less Type-C port. You can keep going up the price ladder here, but these boards pretty much cap out on all the available features. Now let's talk about the best CPU cooler for the Ryzen 9 9950X. Like Ryzen 7000 CPUs, the new Ryzen 9000 CPUs are designed to use up all available cooling under load to increase clock speeds and just give you more performance. Now, AMD recommends a 240 or 280 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, and not only do I agree, but given the falling price of AIO liquid coolers, I'd honestly go with a 360 millimeter myself. You can pick up a pretty decent one for just $56, like the 360mm Thermalright Aqua Elite V2 that we used in our 9600X build guide, or for maximum performance, use something like the $90 360mm Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 for the non-RGB version or $110 for the all-white ARGB version that we use. You can of course go for an air cooler here if you want. The Thermalright Phantom Spirit or Peerless Assassin SE120 for about $35 is a great value, as is the id Cooling Frozen A620 for $39 or the Cooler Master Hyper 622 Halo for about $60. Let's talk about the best SSD for the Ryzen 9 9950X. For storage-hungry production work, NVMe SSDs, they can get super expensive really fast. And if you're budget limited, this is where you should decide if speed or total storage is more important to you. Currently, you can get a DRAM-less 4TB NVMe SSD at PCIe Gen 3 or 4 speeds, starting around $210 US. Now, drives at PCIe Gen 4 speed with a DRAM cache can be had starting for about $50 more, up to an ultra high-end NVMe SSD like the Samsung 990 Pro 4TB that we went with for $325. Now, depending on your workload, you might want several drives if you can speed up your workflow process. For instance, you can have one M.2 SSD as your system drive, one is your scratch drive for video editing, and one for storage of the footage and assets. You can see that with multiple drives, it can quickly eat up a lot of available budget. So while a $125 difference on one drive might be fine, doing that 4 times suddenly costs you an extra $500. Now, I'll leave several different NVMe SSDs linked down in the video description for you to consider. Of course, if you are going to go with a network-attached storage device, maybe you just need a fast system drive, which is similar to our setup here. At the time of filming in the US, 4TB NVMe SSDs tend to be the best price per terabyte out there, followed by the 2TB drives and then the 1TB drives. For the PC case, what we want here, it's very good airflow. Now, great value options can be had for as little as $63 with the Montech XR ATX case, which comes with 3 included ARGB fans, including the side fans are reverse blade, so they're actually intake without having to look at the ugly backside of the fans. Now, we went with the Lian Li LandCool 216 in white RGB. You can also get it in black RGB or just black with no RGB instead, for just $89. We previously did our Ryzen 7800X3D build in this case, and for this build, given the short turnaround time, I wanted something that number 1 looked amazing, number 2 had awesome airflow, and was super easy to build in. In this case, it just never disappoints with its dual 160mm RGB fans. It's an absolute breeze to build in and install the 360mm AIO with a detachable top panel. Honestly, every PC case needs to come with one of these. Other great options include the new Antec C5 RGB with 7 included ARGB PWM fans and that distinct Lian Li 011 dynamic look without the insane price tag. There's a ton of other great value options that we go through in our Best PC Case 2024 video, so check out that video that's linked down in our How to Build a PC playlist. For the PSU, if you haven't seen our Best PSU 2024 buying guide, we cover how to size and buy the best unit for your build based on unit quality rather than those nonsensical 80+ ratings. I'll leave it linked down in the video description below in our How to Build a PC playlist. Basically, I take the rated power draw and PC part picker of all the components, multiply it by 1.5 in order to get the minimum wattage. For this build, we went with a 1200 watt A-tier rated PSU on the PSU Cultist list in the Be Quiet 12M. This is a phenomenal unit. It comes with very nice cables, but of course you can use cable extensions, and it comes with our Nvidia 12-volt high power cable, so we don't have to use the adapter that comes with a GPU. It's also PCIe 5.0 and ATX 3.0, though not ATX 3.1, although it looks like the rest of the 12M lineup has been updated with the additional protection, so our 12-volt high power cable doesn't melt at the PSU end. Other A-tier rated units like the Corsair RME, Thermalright GF3, or MSI A-GL models are well priced and are PCIe Gen 5 as well as ATX 3.0 or 3.1 as well. Now, I've put together 2 build templates to get you started. The first is a value-focused build that uses the Ryzen 9950X at the MSRP of $649. This build uses a dual-tower air cooler, a value-focused MSI Tomahawk B650 motherboard, 32GB of DDR5 6000CL30 non-RGB RAM, a 4TB mid-range NVMe SSD with DRAM, an RTX 4070 Ti Super 16GB GPU, and the same Lian Li LandCool 216 case we used, as well as an A-tier rated 850-watt PSU. That build comes in right around $2,150 US. For the more premium build that we put together, I included an RTX 4090 at about $1,800. That's nearly half the budget. The rest of the build includes the high-performance 360mm AIO CPU cooler with ARGB, a 64GB RAM kit with RGB, our premium X670E Asus Prime Pro motherboard, Lee & Lee LandCool 216 PC case, our ultra-high performance Samsung 990 Pro 4TB NVMe SSD, and a 1200 watt ATIA rated power supply, and it comes in at just over $3,600. Now obviously if you want, you can spend even more, especially on additional storage. But those templates, they should get you started, and I'll leave both of them linked down in the video description for you to check out along with some alternative parts. Remember to check out everything linked down in the video description for current pricing and availability in your region, and the linked videos like our How to Build a PC playlist, including our guide on how to build a PC and set up a PC after your build. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like as it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. And we'll catch you on the next one.